What if I told you that there is a part of you that operates behind the scenes of your mind, influencing your choices, fears, and even your relationships, without you realizing it? Carl Jung called this hidden part the shadow, an aspect of our unconscious where we store everything we deny in ourselves. These are repressed desires, unacceptable impulses, fears, and traumas that we prefer to ignore. But ignoring them does not make them disappear. On the contrary, the more we avoid looking at our shadow, the more it controls us. Think about it. Have you ever criticized someone excessively, only to realize later that what bothered you so much was something that also existed within you? Or perhaps you have felt intense anger without understanding where it came from. These are signs of the shadow at work. But here is the good news. Instead of fearing it, we can learn to integrate it. And that is the purpose of this journey. In the next few minutes, we will dive deep into this concept, understand how the shadow is formed, how it manifests in your daily life, and most importantly, how you can integrate it to live more authentically. Imagine your mind as a grand illuminated stage. At the center, under the spotlight, are the parts of you that you like to show the world. Your kindness, your intelligence, your sense of humor. But behind the curtains, hidden from view, lies another part, the one you prefer to keep in the dark. This hidden part is what Carl Jung called the shadow. It contains everything that has been repressed throughout your life. Impulses, desires, traumas, and even qualities you have not allowed yourself to express. Since childhood, we have learned that certain behaviors are unacceptable. If a child expresses anger, they might be reprimanded. If they show vulnerability, they might be ridiculed. Over time, these parts of us are rejected and pushed into the unconscious. But they do not disappear. They only hide, waiting for a moment to emerge. And do you know what the problem is? The more we try to deny the shadow, the stronger it becomes. It manifests in our exaggerated reactions, our judgments of others, and even in the feeling that something is holding us back from growing. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." But what if, instead of fighting the shadow, we could get to know it and use it to our advantage? Let's explore how this shadow is formed and how society teaches us to hide it. From an early age, we learn to separate what is good from what is bad. As children, we seek acceptance and love, so we adapt to what is expected of us. If we are praised for being obedient, we learn to suppress our rebelliousness. If we are told that crying is a sign of weakness, we learn to swallow our tears. The shadow is born in this process. Everything that has been rejected, whether by family, school, or society, is pushed into our unconscious. And the more we repress, the stronger this shadow becomes. Consider someone who grew up hearing that expressing anger is wrong. They might spend their life trying to always be kind, always calm, until one day they explode without understanding why. This happens because repressed anger does not disappear. It only accumulates until it finds a way to surface. The shadow is also formed through trauma. Painful situations, when not processed, are pushed into the unconscious, where they continue to influence our way of seeing the world. But the problem is not having a shadow. The problem is ignoring it. Have you ever found yourself criticizing someone intensely without a real reason? Or have you ever felt anger or sadness that seemed to come out of nowhere? These may be signs that your shadow is in control. The shadow does not disappear just because we ignore it. On the contrary, it manifests in indirect ways, especially through projections. Projection is when we attribute to others characteristics that actually belong to us, but that we do not accept. For example, if someone constantly judges others as arrogant, it may be because, deep down, they fear recognizing their own arrogance. Or if you feel extremely irritated by people who show vulnerability, it may be because you have learned to repress your own fragility. Another sign that your shadow is in control is self-sabotage. Sometimes we deeply want something, success, love, fulfillment, but without realizing it, we make decisions that push us away from it. Why? Because our shadow contains unconscious beliefs that make us believe we do not deserve it or that we are not capable. Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." In other words, what bothers us most about others can be a valuable clue about what we have not yet accepted in ourselves. Ignoring the shadow does not make it disappear. It only allows it to operate on autopilot, influencing our emotions, behaviors, and even our most important decisions. Integrating the shadow does not mean eliminating it, but rather recognizing that it is part of you and learning to deal with it consciously. Instead of fighting against your darkness, the challenge is to bring light to it. Here are some practical ways to integrate your shadow. Self-observation without judgment. Whenever you feel intense emotions, anger, envy, fear, ask yourself, what is this trying to show me about myself? Shadow journaling. Write about moments when you felt uncomfortable with someone or a situation. What did that trigger in you? Dream interpretation. Jung believed that the shadow manifests in dreams through symbols. Dialogue with the shadow. Imagine your shadow as a separate figure and start an internal dialogue with it. Creativity as an expression of the shadow. Painting, writing, dancing, or any form of art can be safe ways to express aspects of your shadow without repression. Integrating the shadow is a continuous process. It is not about becoming perfect, but about becoming whole. As Jung said, "I would rather be whole than good." Now that you know your shadow, what do you intend to do with this knowledge?